Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 450 of the MTGGoldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have the full crew here this week, kicking things off with the owner of MTGGoldfish, Richard. How are you this fine Monday, Richard?
Good morning, Seth. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing super well. We actually have some pretty interesting stuff to talk about this week, but before we get into that, we got another co-host in Krim. Good morning, Krim. How are you this fine Monday morning?
I'm moisturizing because it's good for you. But otherwise, I'm great. Well, I mean, actually, moisturizing is not bad.
Moisturizing in the desert.
Yeah.
That's better than last week when you were spilling stuff, I think, as we started the cast. So we're upgrading. We've upgraded to moisturizing. So
in a way, I was still moisturizing the other week, though.
You were just moisturizing your floor. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway. Go ahead, Graham. What's up?
Well, now then, I was just going to be like, and, football's back. So.
That's true. The Bills actually played tonight for their first game of the year. Who do you like in football? Like, it's got to be a West Coast team, right?
Yeah. I just don't talk about it because they aren't very good right now. But I'm a Broncos fan. So.
Oh,
we do that. We do that.
I feel bad for you. I feel bad.
Yeah, I mean, now why I don't talk about it. But hey, NBA's starting up.
Yeah, that's coming soon. Yeah, almost basketball season. Anyway, today we're mostly going to be focusing on the impact of Wilds of Eldraine in our new formats. We got standard impact, we got modern, we got legacy, we got vintage. So seeing what Wilds of Eldraine is actually doing in constructed, but we got some other topics too. Some sad news on the Commander front, a new trailer for Magic the Gathering for Wilds of Eldraine, some arena news, so we're going to bounce around a bit. Before we get into it though, a reminder that today's show is brought to you by Card Conduit, and Card Conduit's the easiest way to sell your Magic cards, and if you ever get tired of all the hassles that go into buy listing, Card Conduit lets you skip them. You don't have to do the typing or spend the time or do the work. You can use their curated service to send in as many cards as you want with a buy list value of $1 or more, and pay just a 5% fee. And if you want to do a little bit of work, you can use the sorted service and pay just 2%. And no matter which one you choose, you're going to get a detailed report with the results and a fast payment once the order is processed. And you can even get another 10% off by heading over to cardconduit.com/MTGGoldfish. Card Conduit, they're the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. So let's talk some Magic, and let's talk with, start with what is definitely the saddest news of the week. So Commander's godfather, Sheldon Menery, passed away this week. Did any of you ever get a chance to meet Sheldon? Like, he did a lot of events and stuff.
Yeah, actually, the very first ever Command Fest in Seattle, I had the honor to go ahead and play a game Commander. And then, and even got to hang out with him a little bit after hours at Philly, MagicCon Philly. So, man did wonderful things for the community and actually like just thoroughly loves the community inside and out.
Yeah, I mean, Commander would not, I was going to say not exist. I don't know, maybe it would still exist, but it definitely would not be what it is today if it wasn't for Sheldon. Like, he played maybe the biggest role in shepherding the format from like the EDH days, essentially, where it was this fringe format played by judges like Sheldon, which was actually what he originally was in the community, was like a judge at events. So it kind of went from that into the monstrosity that it is today, being the most popular format under Sheldon's guidance. So yeah, I also got to play with him a few times at events and always had a great time, just like seeing his deck, seeing how much he loved the game, seeing how much he loved interacting with the community. So definitely super sad news, and he will definitely be missed. So huge amount of respect for Sheldon and just what he was able to do with the Commander format and for the game in general. And also just like as a person, he seemed like a very good person whenever I got to hang out with him. That was the impression I got of him. So definitely sad news on that front.
Yeah. I never got to meet Sheldon. We tried to podcast with him once, but it didn't work out. But even if you don't like Commander, he was a big figure in the judge community before Commander blew up. So even if you're just a 60 card player, he's probably touched and impacted like your Magic career in some way. So that's pretty cool, right? So it's unfortunate news, but you know his legacy lives on with Commander now, right? Every time we play a game Commander, we'll remember Sheldon.
Yeah. So rest in peace to Sheldon. Moving on, we got a new a new Magic trailer for the Wilds of Eldraine set. And I need your guys' opinion on this because I'm not an anime fan, so I don't really know how to judge anime. Like, when I see something that's anime, my opinion, like, doesn't matter at all because I just don't, other than once, I've never really watched anime. But is this trailer good? So this is an anime trailer for Wilds of Eldraine. I need Richard and Crim's opinion because y'all are the anime, the doctors of anime, I would say, on this podcast. So is this actually a good trailer?
Oh, yes. It's like...
I'm looking at Crim's eyes. Is he being ironic?
No. Like I think this trailer is so sick. Well, it's like, you know, the story is kind of like thin, right? Because it's only like 2-3 minutes, right? But it's done. This is now the second trailer that they've had done by a legit anime studio, right? So this studio did Tokyo Ghoul. Like they've done some big ones. Obviously, you know, regardless of where Tokyo Ghoul ended up, they did some big animes, right? And then they had Wit Studio, who did Attack on Titan, all this other stuff from Kamigawa. So it looks good, and on top, like, it just like it is production wise beautiful. The voice acting was beautiful. The art style was beautiful. The only, like, you know, and the story is a classic anime story, right? Two people battling, but they're siblings, right? So yeah, it's the classic, you know, like anime storyline, but I'm more so talking about it from a visual standpoint. And all it has done, I'm actually upset that it's good. Because it's another year of emotional letdown. In that, like, there is no anime. Yeah, if it sucked, I wouldn't care. But because it's good, I'm upset. So because like, right, like it's all it's doing is like saying this is what we could have, but we don't. We're just gonna keep getting these baller ass studios making these super sweet looking like trailers that are just trailers, and that's it. And it's upsetting. It's upsetting spaghetti time.
Richard. I was so shocked by this. I want Seth's opinion. I'll give you my opinion, but I'm the exact opposite. I thought this was like trash. So one, I don't want to poo-poo it because I like Wizards trying new things, right? Like, this is one of our criticisms. Like, they always kind of stick to the same mold. So I appreciate the effort, but I didn't make it past this 3-minute video. Like, at 2 minutes in, I closed it. It felt so not magic-y to me. And it just felt like I was watching some generic anime thing. I'm surprised it came from like a famous studio, but like, I much prefer the original Eldraine trailer where it was like felt very magic-y. You know, it was a gingerbread, you know, there was like Garrick and stuff like that. This felt like an anime fan music video that someone put together. Like they took like some fantasy anime, like cut out some scenes, chucked it together, and like composed this. Like, it didn't feel like magic-y. Like, I don't know what that even means in 2023. Like, maybe this is as magic as we get. Like, would that be Gandalf, you know, with the One Ring or something? Like, what would magic be in 2023, right? But it just felt like generic anime. I mean, I don't know why we were there. I kind of prefer the old gingerbread trailer. Like, I thought that was actually really good. That got me really hyped. This one, it was like, what is this for? Like, is this for the Japanese crowd? Like, I'm confused. Like, why is there an anime trailer? Like, since I guess we have the anime cards in Eldraine, so we need an anime trailer.
How
I don't watch things just because they're drawn in the anime style. They got to be good too, Grim. They got to be good too.
Like, they are. It is visually good, right? And story wise, it like, look, I've seen animes based off like plot that's like as you know, deep as a paperclip, right? And those animes have also blown up. So yeah, maybe the tension, it doesn't hit like the Kamigawa trailer. The Kamigawa trailer is still by far like my favorite, but it's still good, you know. And also, you know, like Richard, are you just the way of the retired weeb? Because
I'm retired. I'm revoked my weeb card.
Yeah, you're about to have your weeb license revoked. You said Smothering Tides anime art.
You've seen the Snap trailers, right, Krim? So yeah. When people do trailers for this, they show like lots of different cards and characters to get you hype about pulling those cards and characters in the game. right? So like it's like nonsensical, right? Like Spider-Man shows up and then all of a sudden like Iron Man appears out of nowhere for whatever reason, and they try to like weave it together to be coherent while like popping off the new cards. This one didn't do that, right? This one was just like two characters, it's generic. I can't even tell who they are. They're probably the Rowans. They're the Rowans, right? But like, there's no way for you to tell that if you didn't know that.
Okay,
what?
You have to be pretty entrenched in Magic lore to know they're the Rowans, right? But it's
I will say I did not know they were the Rowans. So I'm kind of in the middle on this. So on one hand, it's a trailer. I'll give you a pass if your 3-minute trailer does not have an in-depth story. Like, that doesn't bother me at all. Like, I'm not expecting you to like create a great work of art in a 3-minute trailer for a Magic set. So that doesn't really matter. I thought it was. Visually, it looked fine. I don't really know anime, so maybe I don't have any like reference point. But when I saw it, I was like, oh, that's like kind of cool.
Credit.
That's kind of like cool sword fighting and stuff. On the other hand, we always deal with this with the YouTube where we're like, okay, this thumbnail, it's pretty cool, but no one's going to know we're playing Magic. Like, would someone at a glance know this is for Magic? If this trailer was not posted on the official, like, WotC site, and if it didn't randomly have, like, Wilds of Eldraine logo pop up in the middle of it for no real apparent reason, I wouldn't have known it was Magic related. So I think to me, it didn't feel very Magic-y. That doesn't mean that it's bad. And I'm definitely not the intended audience for an anime trailer, but I didn't really get the Magic vibe out of it, but I didn't think it was bad for like a random anime thing for 3 minutes. So I'd say the original is way better. It's tough too because it's competing with the original Eldraine. It's competing with the original Eldraine trailer, which I believe is the best trailer they ever made. Like the Sir Ginger trailer from original Eldraine, for my money, is the best. And it like had Garrick and it had characters from the set that are now in the new set. Yeah. Like that one actually felt more Magic-y to me. So I think not being Magic-y enough is a fair criticism. But I also like, I don't know, it wasn't bad. Like it was fine.
Yeah. Does it make you want to buy a box of Eldraine, Seth?
No. I don't see. The thing is, I don't want to open Will and Rowan. Now that I know that's who they are, those are the cards I'm trying not to open. So no, it didn't. It did not.
How does that? Wait, what? How does that hurt the fact that it's Will and Rowan? Why does that make you not want to buy it?
Because their cards aren't very good. Their cards, although Will might be good in Soul Sisters. Maybe I'm gonna try it. Maybe I want to cast Omniscience in my Soul Sisters deck.
So what you're saying is, if they just made a Soul Sisters, an anime based off the Soul Sisters deck,
yes.
you would like swing your shirt around your head, foam finger, like here we go.
I'd watch a full season of that, the Soul Sisters anime.
Richard,
I think Krim brought up a good point though. I think I've lost my Weeb card. So the Weeb ranking on Commander, or sorry, on MTG Goldfish is Krim, Seth, and then Richard. Seth has surpassed me.
Yeah.
I can't believe I moved ahead of you.
I mean, Seth has probably more recently watched anime than me. Probably by several tens of hours, actually.
I can't believe you. Yeah, like Richard, what's going on the
I poo-pooed Smothering Tithe.
Yeah.
I poo-pooed the trailer. I don't even know what anime is anymore, Krim. I'm going to go back to watching BoJack Horseman.
There you go. There you go.
I'm gonna watch King of the Hill. I'm gonna watch The Simpsons. That's where it's at.
Some would say that's an anime. Also, yeah, like
who would say that?
Smothering Tithe that you poo-pooed is now one of the most popular like anime arts you can open. It's
is it actually? Oh my goodness.
It's like right under.
I do not take that back.
It's like 300 or something like that. 400 if you open the spaghetti foil.
There's too many Crims out there. There's too many Crims out there.
Dozens of us. Dozens.
All right, let's keep moving on from the world of trailers to the world of Magic Arena. And then we're going to talk Wilds of Eldraine. But there's a couple posts on Reddit this week about renewal gifts. So when we have rotation, which we didn't really have this year for standard, but when we go to the big fall set, Wizards traditionally does this like renewal gift thing where they give you some free cards to help your collection for the new rotation. And people are complaining because it was a lot of alchemy. Some people opened their IRCs and it was like pretty much all alchemy cards. And apparently alchemy cards are now in golden packs too, which is something that didn't happen in the past. What do you think about Wizards handing out alchemy cards. I guess in some sense it makes, as much as I don't really like this change, but I guess in some sense it makes sense that there was no standard rotation. The problem is alchemy is still just, at least in the Magic internet community, something people love to complain about. So I don't know why Wizards thought there would not be angry Reddit posts when you open up your IRCs and it's a bunch of alchemy cards. It seems like the obvious thing that would happen there, but why do they keep pushing this? Why will they never give up on this alchemy thing?
You know, that is a good question. I have no idea. Honest to God, I have no idea.
I mean, if Lord of the Rings and canceling standard rotation doesn't make people play alchemy, I can't imagine what would make them do it. Like, if that's not enough to get people to embrace the format, what is going to do it?
Remove standard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? You're like, this is the only format.
This is it.
I mean, renewal is supposed to give you stuff because your stuff rotated. Like, isn't that the whole idea of the renewal gifts? So the only format that rotated was alchemy. So getting more alchemy cards kind of makes sense, right? People just don't like alchemy, but it's not like we had a standard renewal or anything like that, right? We have all your standard cards that are still playable. So this kind of made sense, but people just don't like the format and are looking to complain anytime alchemy pops up. So, yeah, but I don't know why Wizards won't kill the format. Like, they're hoping for that second half comeback or something, right? I don't know what's going to do it to turn it around.
I don't know right
how
now
or why, but
Russell Wilson's got you.
I would
Don't
kill
worry.
it, move the team to a different city, rebrand, and start anew, right? Throw the season, up your draft spot, rebrand, and try again, right?
We need
I don't know.
Mega,
Right
Mega
now,
Alchemy. Where's Mega Alchemy?
it feels as likely to happen that alchemy makes a comeback like the Giants did yesterday. Like so.
Ouch. I mean, so I agree with Richard. There was no standard rotation, so that makes sense. Although the Golden Pack's getting alchemy only card is a little bit weird because even if you're like trying to buy standard stuff, you just are going to get them accidentally in your Golden Packs. But whatever, we're quibbling. Let's talk about actual standard. So Wilds of Eldraine has been out for a week, which means we are actually getting our first results from events. There's Moto events. There was a big MTG Melee standard event that had like 128 people right on release weekend. So first off, before we get into the actual data and deck list, what are y'all's impression of Wilds of Eldraine in Constructed, specifically standard, I guess, first? Like, what's your experience been this first week of our new format?
Oh, it's been sick, right? Like, I mean, I've had a good time playing it. The major things are, like, for example, I've run into the end a lot on the ladder, and I play around it by actually just being allergic to the idea of four ofs. So
you don't play creatures anyway. What are they ending out of your deck?
The miser one of everything.
I'm out here playing Commander and Standard. It's called. It shows and it pays off when someone tries to hit my my Wandering Emperor. I'm like, haha, I only had two. No. And other than that, I mean, I've seen a lot of new cards. And I think one of the things that I've seen a lot of as well, and I mean, we'll talk about in a minute, is Faeries. I've seen a lot of Faeries. The one drop and has been doing work. And like the one drop with Likeness Looter, still a solid interaction. And I've also seen a huge surge in Talion. As in, not like it's a four of. I know because I've been looking at people's decks while using the end. I've noticed that a lot of people are running a few copies now, and I'm seeing splits between like Sheoldreds and like other four drops. So as of right now, week one, I'm seeing there's still Sheoldred, but it's not like people are just playing it on four and they're not just four Sheoldreds. I'm seeing the 4-drop slot open up a bit. And also on top of that, like I had a really, really cool deck that I threw together. I don't think it's like S tier or anything like that, but it was Staff of Completion and the new Ashiok and all the planeswalkers that have Phyrexian mana costs. So, like, yeah, like I'm just exiling off the top of my deck whenever I have Ashiok, because for those that don't know, Ashiok's passive let me read it to you. If you would pay life while your library has at least that many cards in it, exile that many cards from the top of your library. So, Staff of Completion, if you don't remember that all-star, it's an absolute house with Ashiok, because as you know, that card will like seriously chew up your health. Right, like it's a 3 mana rock, and you pay 1 life to destroy your own permanent, pay 2 life, add 1 mana of any color, pay 3 to proliferate, and then pay 4 to draw a card, and then 5 mana to untap it. It's the pay 3 life to proliferate that is huge, because within a turn cycle, you can now ultimate Ashiok, and that's huge when I'm playing the Black Virtue card, because for 2 mana, you put 7 mana value into exile, meaning that Ashiok is going to exile at least 7. So it's been a sweet deck, and I've been mixing that up with Toxic. So, like, you know, the Prologue to Phyresis, Proliferate, win through Infect, or exiling your opponent's library.
Sounds like a Crim deck. I mean, I've seen Ashiok once, and I did actually die to it, but I was playing Jank at the time, so I didn't know really how to judge it. I will say, though, like, Standard's been better than I expected. Like, Shieldred is still the premium threat, and it's still in a lot of decks, but I've also seen a lot of people trying new things, more so than I expected. I would say even within the realm of Shieldred decks, like, heading into Wilds of Eldraine, it was pretty much Dimir and Mono Black. Those were, like, by far the most popular Shieldred colors and the biggest decks in the format alongside Esper Control. But now we're starting to see the results from these new events, and it looks like Golgari or Jund might actually be the most popular Shieldred mid-range. Like, we see really a split. Rakdos, Jund, Golgari. We see Mosswood Red Knight being pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good about thinking that would be one of the best cards in Standard. We've seen Glissa really resurrect herself and become like a staple in these decks. So you still got Shieldred, but you are playing legitimately a lot of new cards. So even the Shieldred decks are new in some way, which is kind of refreshing, I think. I've been surprised at how much the format has actually been shaken up.
I mean,
yeah. So
yeah.
Looking at the latest Standard challenge, we have a mono red aggro, a domain list, Esper midrange Azoria Soldiers, the Golgari deck that Seth talked about. We're wrong about Mosswood Dread Knight. Mono white aggro.
Week 1.
Faeries. Week 1. Azoria Soldiers. So a good mix of non-shoulder decks there. If we look at the large tournament that Seth was talking about, Naya tokens actually took that one down. That's no shoulders. So sweet. And then the rest of the decks are black. So Esper midrange, Golgari midrange, Orzhov aggro, Golgari ramp, Dimir tempo, Golgari midrange. So there is some spice here, and we're seeing a lot of new cards. And like Seth said, green is back on the menu, apparently Golgari. So even though it's a black deck, at least there are new cards in there. There are new cards that we're seeing in there. But it's still a black deck.
I know you kind of mentioned the domain deck that came in second in the Standard Challenge. That deck, if you actually look at the list, is actually way wilder than just a domain deck. So this is actually, it's a new deck that people are just start talking about. It's a Cascade combo deck, and the goal of the deck is to play Invasion of Alara. Invasion of Alara essentially cascades until you hit 2 things mana value 4 or less. If you look at the deck list, the only things you can cascade into are Bramble Familiar and 1 Go for the Throat. So you could hit the Go for the Throat, but you definitely hit a Bramble Familiar. Bramble Familiar, you do the Velky trick where you get to cast the 7 mana adventure side and mill 7 cards, and you're hoping to hit Cemetery Desecrator, which then comes into play, removes the counters from the Invasion of Alara, flips it, copies it, like does all this wild stuff, and you just win the game. So it's actually built to be like a standard Cascade deck. I've been playing it a little bit just this morning. The deck is really cool, and it kind of crushes fair decks. I don't know how you ever beat like Faeries with it. Like if they just leave up counters and counter your Invasion of Alara, like you're very, very sad. But if your opponent's not interacting with you, the deck's actually like hilarious and pretty effective. So that's like something super duper new that we haven't seen. So even the decks that like, yeah, it is domain, you do have some of the same domain synergies, but it's doing something very different than we've seen in the past. The same is true of that Naya tokens deck. I absolutely love that deck. That's deck is probably sick. My favorite deck in Standard at the moment.
It's using the Pia from Aftermath So
Yeah,
it's
so
got the
Pia-
Exile engine.
Yeah, if you cast,
and-
if you play anything from Exile, essentially, you get a 1/1 Hasty Thopter. So,
Yeah.
and then you just play
And-
all the impulse draw effects, like Reckless Impulse, Ren's Resolve, Questing Druid. So you're just like, you draw like so many cards, but don't care about Sheoldred because you're not actually drawing cards because it's all impulse draws. You just like draw through your deck and make a million Thopters. And then Krim, what closes out the game? What closes out the game?
Exactly. Let's, it
did
is
it.
week one. It is week one, but for the first, like I did say the White Virtue card is the best one, and it closes with the White Virtue, which is 2 mana. You can get a flash 2 mana 2/2 Vigilant Knight as its adventure side, and then by the way, when you cast it from exile and net a Thopter, you'll be able to now get your enchantment, which is going to give all your Thopters +1/+1 and like all your creatures, and then it untaps all your creatures right after. So, okay, so dude. The
All
virtue.
Right. We'll give
of
Krim the
whatever.
W there, but the actual virtue that won is the black one, right? Even within that tournament,
Yeah.
it's in 30%, 37% of decks. In the standard challenge, it's in 50% of decks.
Yeah.
The black
Sorry,
virtue
W. We
is
took out
everywhere.
the
That's the
W.
one that reanimates every turn and is also a removal spell. Like, shocker, removal spell into bomb like is a good card. We saw this with Uro. We knew this was gonna happen as long as -3/-3 killed something. And it does in our format. So persistence, I think, is actually the winner from Eldraine. Like it's like everywhere, right?
Yeah, I mean, that card just goes into pretty much any black deck. I mean, I imagine you're playing it in some of your control decks, right, Krim? Are you not playing some number of it?
In Esper Control, no. I mean, I have no reason.
He doesn't
Well, I
need a
don't-
win con.
Krim doesn't want to win. He just wants to
He
counter
needs
all
real
your
removal.
stuff.
He needs real
like-
removal. Doesn't need a win con.
What am I gonna do with it? Just turn on all your removal? No, I'd rather just have hard removal, right? Like right now, I'd rather just have a clean answer.
Yeah.
That we also did see Decadent Dragon show up in a super sweet Grixis midrange deck. I don't know if y'all saw that. It was like somewhere around like 12th or 13th or something. But yeah, like, and it's a full 4 copies of that. So yeah, this is a very sweet tournament. We see a lot of new cards being played, but I'm curious to see if any of these stay, right? Like which one of these stay. I think the tokens deck has staying power because in if everyone's trying to do like Black X mid range, right?
Yeah.
Most of those decks aren't like running too many sweepers outside of maybe Gix's command, and it's like a one of.
And even
So-
that you can outscale with like your wedding announcements and with your adventure stuff.
Yeah.
Like you can just pump your creatures big enough that it doesn't actually kill your stuff.
Exactly. So right now we're seeing a lot of these, and I'm still not sure like that the black virtue is gonna stick in every deck. I think it's something people are trying right now. Like maybe like I think in about a few weeks, Golgari mid range might fall off a little bit, and then I think Dimir kind of goes back up, or some form of like control-y versions of it, right?
I think it depends on what the other deck in the format is. Whether you need to be more grindy and aggro, or whether you need the counter spells. Because Dimir came out because control is a dominant deck, right? So you're like, well, I'm gonna just put blue in here and get it done. But if everyone's playing, I guess 1-for-1 control, then your recurring 2-drop will get you there, right? So it's gonna depend on what the third deck in the metagame is, what color you play. But just look at the most played cards; they're all black, right? It's a black X format still. So from the challenge, which is the most recent tournament we have, Cut Down, Go for the Throat are up there. Virtue of Persistence, then Sheoldred, Duress, and then Wedding Announcement, Bramble Familiar. Do any decks outside the Cascade deck play Bramble Familiar? Is that just an indication of how popular that deck is becoming?
I think that's pretty new. I think it shows up in just some like random Golgari decks on occasion, but
It is a mana. It is a 2 mana dork if you play it for the non-adventure side, and then Leyline Binding, Graveyard Trespasser, Disdainful Stroke. So still predominantly black, but we're seeing other decks pop up. On the other tournament, Wandering Emperor and Sunfall are up there in the most played cards, and then Virtue Persistent is there. So Virtual Persistent is the one Eldraine card consistently in the top. And then, of course, our Golgari decks. So interesting to see where we end up. Even previous Standard, we jumped around. Remember, we started Black, then we played Rakdos, and then we did Grixis, and then, whatever support cards, the best support your children. That is essentially for the metagame, right? Although what was happening. So I predict the same thing will happen here. Any viable color will get its time to shine, like depending on what the rest of the meta is doing.
What about Mono Red taking down the Standard Challenge, though? It's got a few cards in there, too. It's got Godric, the dragon cosplay dude, and then Charming Scoundrel. Which we knew would be pretty solid, right? Like these are right, like and it has been. So yeah, and in that whole thing, you see Faeries. It's not blue black mid range; it's blue black Faeries that is like coming up at the top there. I'm not gonna say that doesn't make me happy, but it definitely makes me very happy.
You still got Sheldon in there and Gix. Hard to respect the Faeries when they're just playing Sheldon, but still,
Sheldon's the greatest fairy of them all, Seth.
Yeah, honorary fairy.
They tickle your opponent down into Sheldon kill range. That's what they do.
What do you think of the fairy archetype, Grim? I know you're a big fan of it. Like, so moving forward in Standard, do you think it's like generic Dimir or Fairies that will be the more played of those two archetypes?
I think it's probably going to be Fairies, because Fairies seems to be doing what Dimir midrange was doing, but at a pretty cheap rate, and kind of has it plays super nice. It doesn't have a ton of flash like the old Fairies, but it does play just really, really, really nice. God.
I mean, you get really good spells, and Fairy Mastermind is a card that is really good. I think it's come into its own. It's been played forever, like since it was printed, but it's really come into its own, I think, recently, thanks to Fairies. And I will say that Sleep Curse Fairy is better than I thought.
The truth.
When I first read, I don't know if I'd say it's the truth, but
how is it?
I thought it was unplayable jank, and it's like it's an okay one drop for Fairies. It's actually not that bad.
Seth,
I'm not going to go any further than that.
What's the play pattern for it? Like,
so
why
it's
is
pretty
it
much
good?
People play it on turn one, and then either they just like counter your stuff for a few turns and eventually untaps, or if they have nothing going on, they just spend some mana to untap it quicker. The thing that
they can also
I
swing
didn't really
and
take
untap.
into consideration, is like in the late game, it's got this pseudo vigilance when you have enough mana that you can like just untap it. So I've gotten a few times by like, I'm swinging, they're tapped out, and they're like, haha, untap my Sleep Curse. And I'm like, come on, dude, like don't do that to me. But yeah, so it's actually not as bad as it looks.
It's like the Delver that couldn't flip for 3 turns, and then it has like mega vigilance.
No.
Well, it has ward. You can't even kill this Delver too.
Yeah, that ward is so relevant, and it's better than Delver because Delver never flips for me. It's a 1/1. So this is at least a 3/3 guaranteed. But like, dude, the ward
really
is
though,
sick.
Really, I think it's though partly a product of the spells, because like Fairy Fencing, Spell Stutter, and Ego Drain are so good.
Ego Drain
that like just having a 1-drop fairy, even if it's not going to untap for a few turns, is really, really powerful. Just because it turns on all of these like incredibly strong spells on turn 2. So you get to like play it on turn 1 and then untap and like kill something plus Thoughtseize or whatever, and that's kind of
you can't even get blown out. They can't even kill your fairy in response because it has ward.
Yeah, Sheldon's going up in value to kill the Sleep Curse Fairy of all things.
Yeah, because it's not unplayable jank, and it's pretty. It's the truth.
This is Crim's format. Fairies is working. Edicts are actually a thing. Oh my goodness,
dude! It's so. But like, Ego Drain is like a Thoughtseize,
right?
That's just
that's Thoughtseize if you have a fairy, but if you don't have a fairy, you got to exile a card.
Which, for those that don't know, because I see people casting this all the time, if I kill your fairy in response, you do have to exile your...
That's why the ward is very important on that Sleep Curse fairy, right? Because it's very... on turn 2, they're not going to kill it unless they have the edict or whatever, right?
Yeah. Also, do you want to know something that is quietly just making its rounds in Standard that no one talks about enough.
Is it Void
Like
Rend?
Yeah, Void Rend. no, it's not Void Rend. No, it's not Void Rend. Although it is, you know, people know that it exists, but I'm seeing it more now, more than ever. It's Mirex. I was talking about it back when it came out, but Mirex, I've won so many games against these fairy decks, these control decks, literally doing nothing. Just but activate, like, my stream's seen me do it. I've done nothing at all except activate Mirex.
How many?
I don't know if you've done nothing. I think you have just stopped the opponent's game plan very hard and are castle art unveiling your way to victory here.
This is better than Castle Art Unveil.
It is, actually. It's a much faster clock.
Yeah, double
Actually, is
strike,
it better though,
essentially.
Because it doesn't block.
No, but like, you know what else? You know what does block? Literally all my sweepers and answers and counter spells. That's like blocking, dude. Like Mirex, you know, I said it when it came out. Everybody kind of like, you know, memed on it, but like, it closes, dude. It's so good.
How many do you play though? Like one or two? Like you can't jam 4 of them, right? Because they're kind of colorless after the first turn.
It depends what deck, right? Like if I'm playing my Void Rend heavy deck, I'll probably play 2, right? And then if I'm playing
hold the Mirex for the right time to cast Void Rend.
Yeah, he needs that fixing.
I do. But yeah, like the card has just skyrocketed for me with where this mid-range and controlling meta has been, right?
Speaking of lands, Grim, what about creature lands? What's your initial impression? I see them in a lot of decks. They get fired up sometimes. I mean, how powerful are they in 2023 Standard?
So I have only been playing the black-white one because the black-white one in some, depending on the, like, some formats, right? Like where actually right now red is kind of popular, so it's been paying off that you have this 1/4 that I have actually, like the blue blacks, like I had the blue black proliferate deck I just added white just so that I can animate, have this 1/4 that gains me life against aggro. And it's been really good. The only thing that's a little bit awkward right now is, yes, the colors are kind of weird. They're good lands, but the colors that are needed aren't the colors that the tier decks are playing, right? Like there's no blue-white.
I can't even find one in the top 8 list here. Everyone's playing Nisha's Foundry rather than any of the duels.
Gotta be in the Golgari decks, right? Did the Golgari decks
No, they play Foundry.
Really? Interesting.
They play Boseiju. They play Foundry. Oh, wait, Restless Cottage. Oh, no, there's 2 Restless Cottages.
Okay,
Found
only
it.
a couple.
And then Takenuma. But they got a split of Foundry and Cottage.
Well, reason...
Oh, go ahead, Grim.
I think the reason why that is as I said, right? Like it's like right now the colors aren't there yet, right? Like we need, like if there's a Grixis deck, maybe like the white red deck that I don't know, like got like 27th place in the standard challenge has Restless Bouviac.
What
so the next drop off
would count for?
I'm playing. I think that's like 1 and 3 or something.
Oh, no,
4 and 3.
That's a 4 and 3.
That's better than I thought.
It's 4-3. So like the thing here is these lands, they are getting played in the colors that use them, but we're not really seeing that, right? And the tokens deck that we saw that won the event, I don't think it can afford a tap land.
I was actually going to say that. I've been playing
3.
I've been playing that deck a lot. That's the deck I've played the most in the last couple of days, and I think I'm going to cut the Restless Bivouacs. Like, there's been a couple of times where I fired them up, and they've been nice in the late game, but there's been way more times when I really want to untap land, and I'm playing this tapped and having to, like, not play another spell that turn because I'm playing the tap land. So I almost think in the token deck, it's actually not worth it just because they come into play tap too often. Like, so I'm actually considering cutting it from the tokens list. I think they're still good, but I think you're right that, like, they just don't fit in the most popular color combinations. The colors of the lands just don't line up with the meta that well. But that'll probably change. I mean, I haven't been standard for 3 years. So I think I have been impressed with their power level overall. Like, I think they're all good enough to see play. And once the right color combinations are popular, I expect that we'll see a lot more of the creature lands because they still feel good. moving on from standard, though, we got a couple updates on older formats. So in modern, we haven't seen a super huge impact from Wilds of Eldraine so far. This isn't like a
We have
what have we seen, Krim?
the bean.
There's two cards really. One of them is the bean, up a beanstalk. We were talking about this last cast, and I was pretty much like, is it really worth it? Well, it appears that people, at least for now, think it is. And there's multiple decks in the last modern super qualifier that are up a beanstalk decks, not just playing an up a beanstalk. They're playing the full 4 copies and just like jamming a bunch of expensive stuff. It's kind of funny because like, I don't know how many cards you need to draw. They're playing like 4 One Rings and 4 up a beanstalks and like Furies and Solitudes. But apparently up a beanstalk is actually a legitimate card. Do you think it'll stick, Richard? You play a bit of modern. Like, is this are people just testing this out and the novelty is going to wear off, or is this actually just the truth?
If you can get away with it, it's the truth, right? Like we poo-pooed the One Ring because we're like, there's no way you can take turn 4 off and just like play this thing and lose life every turn. You can, and you will, right? So if you are allowed to take turn 2 off and play up the beanstalk, then you will eventually win, right? If you're not like dead, like immediately, in the next 2 turns. So as long as we get away with it, and I think we'll get away with it. Right, because my question was like, how can someone be allowed to play the One Ring? You just kill them before then. And the answer is we cannot kill someone in Modern before the One Ring comes down. So that leads me to believe that you can't kill someone with, taking turn 2 off with Up the Beanstalk. And the One Ring probably helps, right? Because you up the Beanstalk, you're behind in tempo, and then you One Ring to stay alive, and then you untap, and then you just like draw 8,000 cards a turn. So
Roughly.
My guess is it's the truth until we get better aggro cards or better
I mean, how do you
stacks pieces? I think it's all the free spells, right? Like
Yeah.
you're allowed to take off a turn because then you draw like a million cards and you fire off all your free spells and now you're even, except you have this like incredible draw engine. So my guess is that's it, and that aggro cannot get in there and combos like too nerfed to get anything done. So maybe Modern Horizons 3 will actually give us a threat that people can't just take their turns off to draw cards. But
what would that even be? Like if Ragavan is not that, what do we need? 2 toughness Ragavan so it doesn't die to Bowmasters?
Ragavan
like a
that
1
doesn't
mana
allow
3/3
people to cast
haste?
free spells.
Yeah.
Or every time you cast a spell, if you didn't pay mana, like take 5 damage or something like that.
Oh, it's
Like-
the design's already there. You just make Ragavan instead of exiling the top card and you have to cast it with your own mana. It's just exile the top card, cast it without paying its cost.
No.
No.
There it is.
Okay,
problem solved.
Hound of Isamaru. 1 mana 3/3. If an opponent spends no mana to cast a spell, counter that spell. Something like that. Or
Yeah. That
or
might be.
maybe each opponent, like each spell has a minimum cost of 1 or something. But that may not be enough. It has to be like 2 or something maybe. But give us the white Isamaru back, power creep them so you actually stuff someone and then go to town.
A good Void Mirror.
Basically, yeah. A Void Mirror and a 1 mana 3/3 body, apparently. I mean, I
Just
think
don't
you're right,
give us
though.
more
It's-
free spells. Wizards is like, I heard you like free spells. Here's this new cycle of free spells with
You
some
know-
condition that's very easy to meet. And
it's
then we just
coming.
don't need lands and turns and anything anymore. We just fire off free spells and chain them off by drawing with our Up the Beanstalks.
Isn't that just Yu-Gi-Oh? Isn't Yu-Gi-Oh the game that doesn't have any resource system? You just play all your cards and something happens.
I mean, yeah, pretty much, right?
You've described basically every other card game, right? Like
Yeah.
Pokemon's the same thing, right? Like what is card draw, right? You just draw your whole library. You just fire off all your spells and hope you don't deck yourself before they die. Like we're kind of getting
Pokemon
there, right?
has a resource system. First off, energies, okay?
Yeah.
Yu-Gi-Oh kind of does. Synchro, I mean, like Xyz material.
Like you love drawing cards, right, Seth? Here we go.
I do love
draw
I do
cards.
love drawing
Now
cards.
you don't
Pokemon is
even
your
die
game.
drawing cards. You can
I'm
just
gonna-
draw cards.
I gotta play up a beanstalk deck. The only problem is like I wanna try it. The only problem is the rest of the deck is like the most common build is just like 4-color Omnath stuff, like One Rings, Omnaths, like. So I don't know if I can get away with that. Then maybe I gotta try to brew a different version of it, but I do want to play it and just see how it feels. The other card that's really taking off in Modern and getting actually pretty expensive expensive, at least on Magic Online, is Agatha's Soul Cauldron. Agatha's Soul Cauldron, one of my favorite cards from the set. It's the one that, like, you exile stuff from the graveyard, steals activated abilities. Everything with a counter has the abilities of anything that's exiled with it. So this is showing up in a couple different shells. The biggest one is Yawgmoth has adopted it. Also, Hardened Scales has adopted it. And we've seen some, like, fringe decks, like Green-White Life Gain combo is playing it. But I think Soul Cauldron's actually, like, really, really good. I was thinking like people would try it in Modern, but maybe it wouldn't actually stick in the decks, because how many, like, you got the Ozolith, you got Hardened Scales, how many non-creature support cards can you actually fit in a deck like Hardened Scales? Well, apparently you can fit quite a few, because Soul Cauldron is showing up is usually like a 2 or 3 of. Actually, the decks are playing more copies than like the Ozolith now in these decks, because it's so incredibly perfect with like Arcbound Ravager or whatever. Even like Walking Ballista, just giving all of your creatures the abilities of like a Walking Ballista or Arcbound Ravager is incredibly scary. And then it lets Yogg like rebuild from the graveyard. You can exile your Yogg to give everything that ability. So Soul Cauldron is a card that I've been very, very impressed with. So it'll be cool to see what else people figure out to do with that card. But has anything else?
It's also graveyard hate.
It is, yeah.
Like, you know, we actually do need main deck graveyard hate in Modern, right? So the
It's
fact
like-
that it actually does that too is kind of wild.
It's almost unlicensors, right? Unlicensors, I guess you exile 2 cards instead of 1, but this still like exiles a card starting on turn 2 every turn, which is very, very powerful. So yeah, you get a little hate card aspect as well. Finally, apparently Beseech the Mirror, kind of breaking vintage. It seems like that card has really taken off. It's shown up in a lot of the top vintage challenge decks. Just missed winning the last one. Doomsday won, but Esper Tinker with Beseech the Mirror was second place, I believe, at the event. And it's a full of like 4 of like we're just going off and like winning on turn 1. So it'll be interesting to see if that card remains legal. I've seen a lot of conversations of just about like, here's my crazy turn 1 line. Maybe that's just how vintage is, and you expect Force of Will to be the card that like saves everyone. Like maybe there's enough degenerate things that win on turn 1, it doesn't matter. But it seems like Beseech the Mirror is kind of having a big impact in the older formats. What do you think about
What are
Beseech?
people beseeching for?
So there's
anything?
like, okay, so you can beseech for a whole bunch of different things, like. But there's a bunch of turn 1 win lines that end with you like beseeching and then like looping the beseech and eventually winning with a Tendrils of Agony after you like recast all the things in your graveyard. So that's a common line. They're beseeching for the Time Vault combo. You get 1/2 of the Time Vault combo and then you're able to like take infinite turns. So it's mostly like find vintage is so weird because a lot of decks have several different win cons. You're just playing all the busted cards and you figure out based on your hand like, what is my plan for this? Almost like CDH, where like you have several different combos that can win the game, and you look at your hand and you're like, oh, this hand is going to win with Thoracle, or this hand I'm going on the Ad Nauseam plan or whatever. So it's kind of like that. Like sometimes you're getting Yogg-Will to recast your graveyard, recast the Besiege, try to get a Tendrils, win on turn 1 that way. Sometimes you're getting just a Time Walk or a Tinker to get your big finisher that direction, a Bolus's Citadel, and win that way. But the card it's really busted. What do you think outside of vintage? Is that card, have you seen that in standard much, Grim? I've seen some like Obnixilis decks making a comeback and people trying to like beseech off them. Are they good though? Like, is beseech good enough for standard?
It's okay. I mean, I don't know. Like, what is it getting? Right?
It's
like,
very sad when you can't
Sheldred?
beseech it. I'm always laughing when my opponent just like diabolic tutors. Like, yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, go,
Oh, you can't
go get
bargain it?
Yeah, if you don't have the way to actually bargain it and you have to just tutor to your hand, it's so bad. But
yeah,
Did the
like
Golgari deck not play any?
why would it?
don't think any
don't
of
know.
those decks are playing it.
None?
So the thing is, you got to
Is
remember
it just
you need
more Sheldreds without playing more Sheldreds? Like,
Well,
is this your way around the end? You can play 4 of these to get more, get Sheldreds without having to play 4 Sheldreds. Like, you have to bargain something. Is there?
That's the.
What
that's I
about
was gonna say.
Rakdos? What if we go
Rakdos
back
is-
to Rakdos and we play Blood Tithe, whatever, the 2-drop that gives you
Yeah.
the blood token that you can now bargain? Maybe that's where we go.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think there is
the
a cost
thing
to the
is-
bargaining. Like Golgari, I don't think has the permanent types to bargain off of very consistently. So I think that's the issue there. Like you do have to have an artifact, enchantment, or token to sacrifice, which does limit it. But what were you saying, Krem?
No, I mean, like, yeah, it's kind of limiting in types, and I just feel like, I don't know, quite often it does just feel like it's, I don't know what it is about it. Like, it just doesn't play as well as you would think it would, right? Like, unless you're a combo deck, right? I don't see a reason for it.
If you believe Sheldon is the best card in the format, you could play 8 Sheldons here. Do we actually need support cards?
It can get your end, Crim. It can get your end. It can get
Oh, it
Void
can.
Rend.
The times I've
It
run
can get
into
Rankle's Prank.
the times I've run into it, all I've seen is people cast it and then like it gets countered by spell stutter, right? Like it's like
Well, that's true of like every spell, though, right? Like
that's
most things
fair,
get
but
countered by spell
Well, but you had
But
to
you're not
bargain.
bargaining.
You had
Yeah,
to
you're
bargain,
not
so you had to
true.
go down something as you got countered. So
That's
that's
true.
actually worse off than normal.
Anyway, I think that's most of the impact we're seeing from Wilds of Eldraine. Any final thoughts before we hit up a fish mail or two? Oh yes, I want to mention we're going to be in Vegas. This is not exactly fish mail, but the whole Goldfish crew going to be at MagicCon Vegas in a couple of weeks. So if you're going to be in Vegas, stop in, say hello. We'll sign your stuff. Maybe we get into games. So yeah, if you're going to be in Vegas, stop and say hi for sure. Anyway, Richard, why don't you fish mail us?
All right. If you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air. What do you guys, from Ron Bolofsky, what do you guys think of Modern becoming a large rotating format? Every year they remove the earliest year available. So this is going, what was it called? Extended?
Yeah, like super
yeah.
huge extended, 20-year extended or something. 20, well, yeah, I guess it'd be like 20-year extended.
I think we might have actually had a point for this at some point, but now Modern rotates with all the new cards anyway. Like Modern Horizons 3 will cause a metagame shift, which is effectively a rotation. So I don't think we need this anymore, but I don't know. Like, do we like playing with all the old cards? Is there any reason to remove old cards from the format?
I would rather see it go the other direction. You start lopping off the most recent years, so the old cards still have a chance. Like, let's rotate in reverse.
We're just counting down until the Days Jund becomes viable again.
Yeah, yes. Let's get back to
modern would be
2015.
great at that point.
But I mean, really though, I don't see the point of it. Like, so the first year you'd lop off like Mirrodin block. What does that really do? Make sure like no one can ever play Affinity, no one can play Hardened Scales. Like, that doesn't seem like, I think those cards are the good guys these days. In a world of like Modern Horizons and Lord of the Rings, I would rather see like those cards somehow be more supported so we see them more often. So I don't view old cards from 20 years ago as being a problem. And I don't even think it's a financial problem anymore. Like they've been, I remember when Ravager, Arcbound Ravager was like, a prohibitively expensive card that actually like caused problems. Like you couldn't play budget Affinity because Ravager was so expensive, but they've reprinted a ton of times. It's not as played as it was before. Now it's like $5 or something, $10. Like it's not an issue. So even those old cards, they aren't even a financial burden anymore. So I don't really see the point in like cutting those cards out of Modern.
We're so far from those days.
Yeah.
How could we lop off new cards in a way that Wizards would be happy about it? Because it would be very funny if you just wiped Modern Horizons 1 and 2 out of Modern and then went to that metagame. Like, that would be hilarious.
How could you even do that? I don't even know how you...
And do you want to keep the new cards? Like, do you want to keep Eldraine? Like, yeah, I think it'd be pretty funny if Eldraine was available, but like Modern Horizons 1 and 2 were not.
Maybe just do like a vote, like every year vote, and let the community vote on a set to ban or something. I don't know.
We're becoming 93, 94 Magic, right? We're like, okay, this is peak Magic the Gathering, and we're gonna lock it in forever, right? Modern is like, I don't know what it'd be, like 2006 to 2012, and that's it.
Are we just all boomers though? It reminds me every time I hear this, it reminds me of like there's that Simpsons where Homer's listening to like 70s rock and Bart and Lisa are like ragging on him, and he says everyone knows that rock achieved perfection in 1976 or whatever. Like, is that what we are now? Are we just those boomers that are looking back and like modern achieved perfection in 2014? It'll never be better than that.
I genuinely don't think like believe it or not, I don't know if okay, we are boomers, but right, like, but I do believe that modern actually did hit a sweet spot where it was very balanced. I know it looks bad.
I believe
Was
that
it right
too,
after
but
they
that might
unbanned
just be
Jace the Mind Sculptor, Crib, and then like that was it? You're like right here.
Right, like that brief moment when Jace is unbanned. No, like legitimately though, before even the Jace's unbanning, to like I can't even remember what year it was, but remember like Colligan's command was like, oh my god, it's happening. It's like this.
Yo,
Colligan's command
that's
deck,
the
my
Judd
seizure,
Glory
I
days,
know.
Crib.
Yeah.
I didn't know you were a Judd aficionado there.
I was Grixis, Richard Grixis on top of that.
Grixis was always a legitimate archetype, though.
I have a question for you, though, related to this. Do you think we'll ever feel that way about Pioneer? Like, if I think about what I consider the glory days of Modern, like 2015 era, that's when I had like 12, 13 years of sets in it. Do you think like 5 years from now, Pioneer is going to be like similar to Modern at that time? Or has design just changed so much that it's not going to be able to replicate like the peak Modern era, or what we would call the peak Modern era?
This sounds
It's
like
neither.
about civilizations. Because
It's neither.
the reason Modern was so good because it was stable, right? There was like a good like 3 or 4 year where everything was stable. You knew the archetypes. You had like your secret tech cards for the archetypes, and it was very predictable, and everyone prospered. And in 2023, like every set, like an earthquake happens, and like your whole city gets like crumbled, and you gotta like pick up the pieces, and you probably rebuild into a better city, but there's like no continuity. Like I'm just thinking. Vintage players, I'm sure, are not happy about Besiege the Mirror. Like, what if you just wanted to play a non-rotating format? Like, if you wanted to play a format that doesn't change very often, what are you supposed to play? Like, all of them change so frequently, right? From Modern all the way back to Vintage, Pioneer, Standard. Like, there is no boomer format where you're like, I don't want to keep up the metagame. I want to read one article once every 6 months. I want to build a deck. I want to play it for like forever. Like that doesn't exist anymore, right?
Not officially, but I think we see this from the rest of the community with all these like pre-EDH, pre-modern, 93, 94. Like there's many community created formats that seem to be trying to solve this exact problem. Like what if we just like don't allow anyone to play the new cards? I don't know if those formats can ever succeed. I don't want to not ever play the new cards. I just would rather be able to sometimes see some of the old cards too, and not just the new cards.
I mean,
we just got to digitize. If you play a card made before like 2022, its mana cost is reduced by 1. Just like blanket buff to like every old card.
Or just like Apocalypse Chimes for Modern Horizons. Just destroy all permanents originally printed in Modern Horizons or something.
Oh, what? Like it's like, okay. Hound of Isamaru, 1 mana, 3/3. Any card from Modern Horizons set costs 2 more.
Yes, there we go.
So it would cost, but I don't know if you solve anything, because then it costs 2 mana, right? Because everything's free.
No. We put it in the next standard set. Okay, it's a Doctor Who card. Okay, it's a Doctor Who card. We can fix this. We have the tools.
We cracked it.
I think that it's a mixture. Like for Pioneer, I think it's not. I don't know if we're gonna miss the heydays or not, because we'll never get to that point if that format dies, and that format's gonna die if they don't do something about Nykthos.
I'm still not happy about Pioneer.
Yeah. Like it's been a very long. Like right now, it's just pretty much the only. Like I begrudgingly play Pioneer, right? Like, but like they have a chance to save it before it becomes whatever Modern is now.
Pioneer is such a tough one because I don't think it's like a broken format. It's just a kind of a boring format. Like, it's so funny because we keep complaining about things changing too much, and Pioneer I feel like has the opposite problem, where it's just always Nykthos and Rakdos and at the top of the meta like forever. So it almost has the opposite problem as every other format. But I've definitely find myself in that same position where, like, if I fire up Arena and I have to choose between Explore and Historic, I have been choosing Historic like every single time, because I think about clicking on Explorer/Pioneer. I'm just like, I don't want to play against Nykthos every other match. Like, that does not sound appealing to me. I'd rather take my chances with these digital only cards, honestly.
Okay, last question. Solid Gold Toilet. Do you think we will ever see another white bordered set? What would Wizards use it for? So we've done the retro border. We keep seeing them. When will Wizards get onto the white border train and make everything white bordered?
You know they're going to do it. Like, if retro border worked, and it has worked and been very successful, don't you think eventually they're going to, like, come back around to white border? Like, as a special
Troll
thing
Masters?
like they do. Yeah, they're going to do, like, 8th edition remastered or something. Like, you know it's going to happen sooner or
What
later.
if no one buys it, though? Because would you really buy a white border, like 8th edition? 9th
Yeah,
edition?
dude.
Those are the worst ones.
No,
Yeah,
I mean, so they're not old borders. Old border's top tier, but then I would play white border over current border if I had to choose. So white
What?
border is still kind of...
This is news to me, Seth.
You don't like
never
white
played a
border?
white border card. I like
You
white
don't-
bordered. I actually like white border because I like the revised look. I actually like the white and faded. So I like that look. So I want the faded one back. I want white bordered back. They did do white bordered Tybalt, right? They did the Tybalt.
Yeah, they
secret
did the
lair,
white border
I think.
Tybalt.
And I also want the dual land boxes. Like, you know, the original duels, how the rules box is 2 colors.
Oh, yeah. That looks so good. This, like, yeah, like the pattern of, like, swirling 2 colors in the text box.
But I think Wizards is afraid of white border because I think most people do not like white border.
I think they've
surprised-
acknowledged it as a troll, right? When they printed it
Yeah.
on the Tybalt,
Yeah.
right? Like, they've acknowledged it as that. So there's no way that we would
like
ever
a
get a
secret
full
layer I
white
can
border
see.
set.
Maybe even a commander deck, but if they're just like Modern Horizons 3, like the special treatment is white border, like I don't know if that's gonna fly.
I
Look.
mean, isn't Secret Lair a good way to test that? Couldn't you throw up a white border layer drop and gather data on it, like, to see if anyone buys it?
But do you put
Like,
your good cards in that layer drop, or do you put your bad cards in that layer drop?
Yeah,
set?
I guess
Why would
that's
you put
true.
your bad cards? Because then people don't buy it, right? So you have to put good cards. Like, you take current cards. Let's just say you put, like, Oko in white border, right? That's funny. That's pretty trolly, right? Like I like it. I mean, look, I don't know why there's something appealing about white border, right? I started in Onslaught, so, you know, I missed the white border, initially in Standard, but something about it. It looks it looks nice. It's very
Because
pleasing.
we're boomers. We gotta check what the Zoomers have to say about this.
I would assume
I mean, I was
overall
gonna
white border is the least popular. I think if
Yeah,
you pulled
like,
the community as a whole, I bet white border comes in at the bottom.
Yeah, probably. That or Amonkhet.
Oh,
The
yeah,
Amonkhet
the
border.
unreadable Amonkhet.
All right,
Anyway.
so that's all our fish mail. If you have questions in the future, send them to @MTGFish or @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air.
And I believe that brings us to the end of episode 450 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So Richard Cram, thanks for hanging out. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to Card Conduit for supporting the show. And we'll be back next week to talk about whatever goes on in the world of Magic. So until then, have an amazing week, everyone. And this is the crew signing out.